Anthony Joshua versus Charles Martin. The gloves are off. You know, I almost didn't make this video. And the reason I didn't make this video was because I know I'm going to be accused of being a hater the second I make it. But, you know, then I thought, what's the point of having a YouTube channel if I'm not going to speak my mind? So I'm going to put it down. First and foremost, shout out to Michael, who showed me the gloves are off, which is much appreciated. Before anyone asks, I'm afraid I don't have a link to it, but if you're savvy with social media and the internet and that sort of thing, I'm sure you can track down a copy of it without too much difficulty. But this gloves are off, I think, goes down as the worst gloves are off I have seen ever. It was certainly worse than the Spike O'Sullivan, Chris Eubank Jr. gloves are off that I was highly critical of. You know, after about 3 or 4 minutes, I was wondering when this was going to warm up, how it was going to warm up. After about 7 or 8 minutes, I was thinking, where on earth is Dillian Whyte? Can we not get Dillian Whyte involved in this somehow? You know, Charles Martin, and I like Charles Martin. I like him as a boxer. I like him as a guy. But he is such a laid-back, cool guy that he just didn't really offer very much on this format, I'm afraid. You know, he said very little. He gave away very little. He didn't offer very much, and I'm afraid he didn't do much to sell the fight here. You know, Johnny Nelson was asking him questions. He was answering him one-word answers. You know, very, very short responses. He seemed to wake up towards the end of the programme. It was 22 minutes long. He seemed to wake up 17, 18 minutes in. I don't know if it because the producers said to Joshua and Martin, guys, you've got to do something here to give us any sort of excitement or any sort of soundbite. But you know, the last 3 or 4 minutes, Charles Martin proclaimed himself to be a god and said he was going to knock Anthony Joshua out and seemed to get very hyped and very passionate. You know, Joshua was doing this sort of whole gentle giant. He was doing this whole sort of stay humble routine that we've all seen him do before. But it was very respectful between the two guys. And that's good to see, don't get me wrong. But when you've got two guys who aren't really talking very much, it doesn't really help to sell the fight. Now, I know in this particular instance, the fight is such a good fight that it doesn't actually need bad blood to sell it. And I'm not saying we need fake bad blood on every single fight, you know. I'm not saying that needs to be the case at all. This fight will do very well without that storyline. But part of me wonders if personalities are so important in boxing, and WWE style personalities are so important in boxing, that Eddie Hearn may be in for a little bit of a surprise here. And I wonder if this fight will do quite as well as the Dillian Whyte fight. You know, my initial suspicion was that it would outperform the Dillian Whyte fight substantially. And I do think the fact that there's a world title on the line does add some huge glamour to the card. Having said that, what does the average sports fan care more about? Whether there's a title on the line or whether there's animosity and bad blood. And I thought the character that was Dillian Whyte really helped to sell the last fight and really helped to turn it into the occasion that it was. Yeah, this gloves are off. You know, listening to the two guys talking about their troubled childhoods and their struggles and you know, how they want to unify the heavyweight division and how they believe the other one is the real deal and they've got a lot of respect. You know, it was not, for me, getting my juices flowing for this fight, I've got to admit. You know, I would have liked to have heard a bit more about how Anthony Joshua was going to beat Charles Martin. What areas of Anthony Joshua's game does he believe are stronger than Charles Martin's? Yeah, what Charles Martin's weaknesses are, how Anthony Joshua is going to expose those weaknesses, you know, whether Anthony Joshua is going to be fighting for the knockout or for points. You know, just that sort of conversation for me would have made it more interesting. The last 3 or 4 minutes, to me, it just looked like somebody had said to them, guys, you know, we're not getting too many sound bites here. Can you have a bit of a pop at each other in the last 3 or 4 minutes? But yeah, for me, the Anthony Joshua, Frank Bruno, Gentle Giant persona, it's very rigid, very manufactured. It's very robotic, and that can work well to have the sort of clean-cut guy opposing the sort of loudmouth in the Dillian White example. But with Charles Martin, the sort of laid-back, cool dude kind of character, it just didn't do it for me. If you haven't seen this one already, well, I'm not saying don't watch it if you've got a spare 22 minutes on your hands. Any boxing coverage is good coverage, I guess, but not one to look forward to. Let's put it that way. Let me know your thoughts. Have you seen it? Am I wrong? Am I being harsh? Do you agree with me? Give me your thoughts on Joshua's personality, Charles Martin's personality. Many thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this, do hit the thumbs up. If you're new, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks.